Hey, my name's Domi. I'm a Mountain Blade Warband Napoleonic Wars player. I've been playing actively for 7.5 years now, and I was also part of the England national team that won the 2021 NWC, which is the World Cup for this game, and that was the third title of that kind for me.
I felt given the past 2 years, the effect of the COVID-19 or COVID-21 pandemic, I should say,
Yeah,
on one's life, this to be an appropriate starting question before we head
yeah.
into the gaming topics. So, have you been coping well? Has the pandemic changed much of your behavior, or has it been pretty much the same?
Uh, Pandemic for me, it was pretty good throughout. Pretty enjoyed it. Um, Most people hated it. There was times I really hated it. After on the third lockdown, I think I absolutely despised it. But the first two, I really enjoyed it. Just had much more time to game and do what I want, and I worked out all the time because spare time and no work, so that was good. So all round, it wasn't too bad, and it seems to be on the mend now, but maybe not with all the new stuff happening. Oh well.
In general, did it have much of an effect on you mentally, or not as much? Just
Um, yeah, it affected me mentally in the third one. But the first two were alright.
yeah. Because I know you said to me recently you finished school, I think on the 17th of December it was. And
Yeah.
then, like, how's that been going with the pandemic? You've had a lot of troubles with that, or?
No, all my school was fine actually, because I was online school for ages. So the main portion of the pandemic was homeschool, which was no different. And it wasn't until recently, when the lockdowns have been lifted, that I went back into school. So the COVID pandemic hasn't actually affected my school at all, really.
Would you say it's a lot more, well, I wouldn't say pleasant, but like handier to sit away from school and like learn that way, or do you think it's like a lot better in terms of like learning that you're actively sitting there at school desks?
No, it's better you learn in the school desk, because when you're doing it online, as I play on my computer all the time, it's very easy to get distracted. Many times I'd just mid-lesson just be watching YouTube or anything, and then it's easy to procrastinate when you're on your computer. So better
Yeah.
in school.
So yeah, I think that's pretty much that. Onto the gaming
Yes,
topics,
yes.
and more specific Mountain Blade, because that's the pretty much the nature of this conversation. And let's start at the beginning, shall we? And
Yes.
you can answer these next questions like to the best of your recollection, of course. If you don't know, that's fine.
Yeah.
But how did you first come across the Mountain Blade franchise? Can you recollect that?
I can. It's quite a weird one. Most people came to it from people like Malekith or Chad Tobia, and they did all the event commentaries, which you're obviously familiar with. And I actually came to it from a Yogscast member. It was Yogscast Shin, and um single player playthrough on one of the campaigns with a certain mod or whatever. And I was like, oh, that looks really cool. I want to try. That was around the time I was playing Total War games as well.
Yeah.
I think I was a 9 then. I think 9. So that would have been 2012, and I got the game and started playing the single player. I played that for years, and then I saw with my brother that the Napoleonic Wars was pretty cheap, and we bought it on sale, and then we ended up going on a server, whatever, and someone asked to recruit us. That was in around, I think that was 2012, 2013, and the first we played that for about 6 months, and we'd play a round each, and we'd switch on the computer and whatever. So that was sort of my introduction to the Napoleonic Wars regiment side, and then it was it was a year or so later, maybe 2 years later, at the nearer middle of 2014, the end of 2014, I went on the 15th Humans versus Bots, which was a casual server back in the day, led by the 15th Regiment, and the colonel recruited me, and I joined the regiment, and then I started from there, and the rest is history, if you will.
So 2012 was the first, or the year where you first started playing Mountain Blade Napoleonic Wars,
Yes.
and then it took around 2 years to be then actively recruited into a regiment.
Well, I was in a regiment for briefly with my brother, but not. I wouldn't really count it with what I did. So properly, I'd say it was
Yeah.
around 2 years till I actually joined a regiment.
For an
properly.
official regiment to
Yeah.
journalist too.
And I suppose when I was 9 years old, I didn't really grasp it. When I was 11, I grasped it a bit better, but still.
Yeah. So you said it looked pretty cool, right? Napoleonic Wars. Was there any particular reason why you started playing it? Like something about Napoleonic history that interested you, or
Yes, there is. It was from watching the Sharp movies. Well, I don't know if you know them, but
with
the
Sean Bean? Yeah.
with Sean Bean, yeah. I loved all of those. I watched them with my grandpa. I had like, a whole box, however, and loved that whole period and just the battles and Napoleon. I'd always get told stories about Napoleon from my grandpa because he liked him as well, and I was just interested in that. So I ended up when I saw, I think it was a Malekith videos of his commentary on battles, then well, I decided I want to get into it.
Yeah, and get into it. You did.
I
As
did.
you mentioned just at the start of the conversation, 7.5 years.
Yeah. I just counted now, and 7.5 years is how long now.
Yeah. What made you like? What made you like the game and kept you playing it for that long?
Um, well, regiments I always liked. Just in general, it was cool to have people you talk to. To be honest, I didn't have many real life friends outside school or outside of online because well, I say that. What am I saying? I didn't have many real life friends because I wasn't in school. So
Yeah.
regiments was, a good way to talk to people. I'd always just go on my computer and go and do that. So I suppose that's what kept me attracted to the game.
Definitely the community then from your side.
Oh yeah, for sure. And obviously I like the game, and I became quite decent in it pretty quick. So I then just thought, no, I'll stick playing.
Yeah.
It's enjoyable.
I think it's something of the same reason for me as well. Like definitely the community that kept me playing it. Although I was initially attracted to the game,
Yeah.
due to its
Well,
history and gameplay and such.
yeah. Well, I found when you first join, you're all very serious about it. Like you want to do all the lines properly and everything. You don't muck about at all.
Yeah.
And as you go on, you just stick because you're with friends and you're playing, having a good time. You're not really caring about the the reenactment, if you will, anymore. Not that I ever cared too much, but that was more of a driving factor for me at the start.
Yeah. So I think I already mentioned to you that there were gonna be some surprise questions in here.
Yeah.
So this one is pretty much testing your memory, considering I
Yeah.
used to record almost every event.
Yep.
I can kind of backtrack to when you first joined my line regiment, and try not to
Yes.
cheat. Try not to cheat. Looking it up.
No, I won't.
But can you remember when you had your first event with us? If you can guess the year.
The year is 2015. It's either September or October. When I joined, it would have been October, I reckon. So
Yeah.
October.
Do you remember whether it was the Swiss 60 or the Swiss 5e?
60. It was six.
It was the 60, yeah.
Six. I remember that.
Did you have any expectations prior to joining us? It was just like for the funds.
No, I just joined for fun because I had my friend in there already, and I'd played with you guys for a little while, and I joined because I'd already been in the other Swiss regiments, a little while before that, and I
Yeah.
took a break from the game for, I think 7 or 8 months. I had a cav regiment in that same brigade before in the early part of that year, but then I came back because I clearly liked the game, and then I stayed and joined you in the 2015. You said I think October.
Yeah. I hope we didn't give you too hard a time. I think
Oh no, it was a
I
great
think
time.
you yeah. Did you kind of enjoy all the years with us then in our group?
Oh, really, otherwise I wouldn't have stayed around from that long. I'd have been in 11 when I first joined you, and now 18. So clearly I enjoyed it to some extent.
Yeah, you might have kind of felt it coming, but I asked these questions because obviously I recently disbanded the fifth.
Yeah.
Again, after more than 7 years of activity within the NW community. So is there anything you just wish to share here in regards to your time in the fifth before we head on to some viewer questions?
No, I not really. The bit that sticks in my mind most is the first events when I look back at my extreme squeaky voice and how I progressed from that to it's I'm not void of voice breaks anymore, but it's quite a change, and I think that's testament to how much I enjoyed it, just the time and how much I changed in the regiment.
Yeah. from an officer's perspective, I can only say that it's been like so much fun getting to know people first and foremost, but then to see them grow up throughout the
Yeah.
years, because you're literally spending years of time with your
Crazy.
members, and you can just hear, like, you don't even have to see members, but you can listen to them and hear them grow
Jeez.
up, which is a fun experience as well from an officer standpoint, because I was pretty old already when getting into the game. I think I was 17, 18 years old.
Yeah.
So 27 now, and it's quite something. Like to
is.
hear members and to have members join that are fairly young.
Yeah.
And then to just hear them grow, it's pretty cool. Like, but that aside, so I managed to get some people hyped up for this particular conversation, and I asked all around if anyone had any questions they'd like to ask you. And I did manage to get a few interesting ones. Some I've already asked you just now, because I thought of them too.
Yeah.
And some of them have yet to come. But here are two that were sent in. One is from Raz. In what way or ways have you seen the Napoleonic Wars, or Warband community in general, change?
So that's a hard question, I think.
It's a deep one.
Well, because I joined the game in properly, and to what I remember is the 2015 or 2014-15. There wasn't quite the height of the huge regiments, because the huge regiments, they were 2013, 12-ish time. So I never really saw that, but from what I've seen, their regiment sizes declined. I've seen there's no longer huge brigades like I used to see. I don't know if there is any huge ones anymore, but you used to have ones that like take up whole teams and everything, and that was quite crazy to see.
Yeah.
We would have been pretty small. The Swiss brigade was pretty big at times, I suppose, but I can't ever remember a time we had like actively more than 70 coming to events. So
Yeah.
it was never the huge ones. But I'd say the biggest change is just the reduction in regiment size, the reduction in seriousness. I think as time's gone on, people have cared less and less, and not cared less and less. They're more there for fun at that point rather than trying to be the biggest and the best. On the competitive side of the game, it's still a bit, it's not as, it's died down more recently, but the for a long time there was still just people wanting to be the best regiment, fighting over that for years. They still do, but on the casual side, I think gradually people have become less caring about it, and they're more just there for a good time. So I think that's the biggest change. It's just going from like hardcore roleplay, officers telling you what to do, and you're not allowed to talk even in some regiments, to now people just there for a good time.
Yeah, at the start definitely that was the case. I think only the hard role-playing regiments still do that, though there are very, very few left of those, I imagine.
Yeah, for sure. And as to be honest, if the biggest change as well is just the skill level in the game. You've gone from back in the day when majority of people couldn't block the right way, to everyone being able to block the right way, and they can do other things as well. So that's also a very noticeable change.
Yeah, I think I can agree with that. I think most of the melee fights, in comparison to the years before, they go on for a lot longer now.
Yeah, that's because people just don't die instantly. Usually just spin around and kill everyone. It's not the case anymore. The best players have always been. They have improved gradually over time, but they're still some of the best players that come back now. They can still hold their own fully. And some, if they carry on playing, they're still as good as they were. So there's always been some players that have been really good, but the general player base has increased skill-wise.
I assume this last question from, or the second question from Joostrijk, is to each individual different, but perhaps you can enlighten us on how much time you spend on this game, back when you were very active at least, and in order to get to the level that you are now.
When I was very active, how much was I playing? I think I was playing 60, 70 hours every 2 weeks when I was really trying to get good. Back in right at the start, I played that amount as well because I didn't know what I was doing, so I had to get decent by that, like regiment standards.
Yeah.
When I went to competitive Mountain Blade in 2018, I already had a foundation to work off of because I played the game for quite a while. I think I had like nearly 2,000 hours. I've not quite got 4,000 yet, but those first 6 months to a year, I was playing 60 hours every 2 weeks, 70 even, because I wanted to be. I just said I wanted to be, one of the best. So I put my mind to it at that time. But how much you have to spend, I think, you can get pretty good now. You're not gonna have any chance under 1,000 hours. No chance. But if you're playing actively, and to be honest, the quickest way to make yourself better now, if you still wanted to, then it's just to get someone to teach you everything.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you've got no hope. But yeah, in reality, is thousands, or 1,000, 2,000 hours to get really good now. But to become above average, you can do that very quickly. You could do that playing, even 20 hours every 2 weeks, and if you're playing with someone that's good, you can learn.
Yeah. And obviously we're going to be talking a lot about the melee mechanics, because that's naturally the thing that, as a topic, comes back with this game, because it's not really RNG, is it, compared to shooting? So a discussion many players have, especially when looking at other upcoming games within this niche, are obviously these melee mechanics. And games like Holdfast, Nations at War, which was released back in 2017, War of Rights, Prime and Load, and then a game that's currently in beta and due for release somewhere in 2022, aka Battle Cry Freedom.
Yeah.
All are in a way based on this game, Mountain Blade Napoleonic Wars, or mods of it like North and South. And most of these games obviously having developers that came from that community, or they worked on that DLC expansion. I think the one that stands out in this list of games is definitely being War of Rights, because that game went with a more realistic and cinematic approach, like really focusing on that historical authenticity with like immensely detailed battlefields and like very important team play. And I think this is very noticeable in their melee system, which is very basic compared to the others in the list. But to go from there, would you say that the Mountain Blade Napoleonic Wars melee mechanics are at this moment unrivaled?
I think well, it depends how you view it. Like, they're by far, in my opinion, they're unrivaled in complexity and how good you can be at them. But then the new games they've taken the 4-directional approach, or even 2-directional when it's muskets. And in reality, if you think about just 2 directions, it's not that interesting. I think Mountain Blade, the reason it's the best is it's all the little, to be honest, I don't think were intended parts of the game, the intricate parts and everything, that allow it to be as interesting and such a high skill cap compared to the others. Like, I remember playing, Holdfast. They've not gone for complete realism like War of Rights have, but they sort of try to make it more realistic and arcade at the same time, and it just didn't work for me. It's just in the middle ground there's not too much skill to it. There's still skill, of course, but it's not, a lot of it just didn't feel as tactile and accurate of what I was doing. I know exactly what I'm doing in Mountain Blade, but sometimes in those games it just, I don't know, it doesn't feel as consistent as the Mountain Blade one.
Yeah, you can definitely see that they're trying though, right, to try to replicate.
They're trying to replicate, and the reason I don't think it's easy to replicate is because a lot of the things, as I said, I think the things that make Mountain Blade Melee interesting is, I don't think, were intended, and therefore, if you can't, it's hard to make that in a game because it was sort of by accident to some extent. And also, just when they try and, I think I enjoy it when it's more arcadey, because the more arcadey I suppose Mountain Blade's arcadey, and it gives it a high skill cap and compared to the other ones. And when it's not, there's not much to stick around for me. I'm not there anymore for the the visuals and the excitement of like the battle. I'm there to I enjoy like the melee itself, and that's just not in the other games.
Yeah, I believe it was because you remind me of it, because I think it was you that said it to me, but I've seen some other comments as well in regards to like those people said that Warband's melee system is actually broken in some areas, or as you just mentioned, like unintended. I think really, like, in regards to hitboxes and animations that made them very exploitable for players, and the fact that the system is broken in some of these areas is what made it perfect, quote unquote.
Yeah, because there's once you've learnt them, you always like discovering new things, and even like 5 years on, people are finding new ideas and they're becoming popular. Some of them obviously aren't annoying in the things that you can do, but majority wise, the hitboxes I say are very good. Like if you're hitting someone, you know you're hitting them. Like it's accurate in that sense. Sometimes there's a few like interactions that go a bit weird, but all round you can look over those, and it's just the things that don't make much sense. That then once you learn them and you understand them and make sense of
Yeah.
them, it makes it brilliant.
So I definitely agree that this is probably one of those reasons that why other games based
Can't
on
make
this
it.
game are not going to be able to fully
Yeah,
replicate this
yeah.
system. In terms of Holdfast, could you briefly share your opinion on that game or your thoughts? Like, what are the things that you think the developers managed poorly, and what are the things that you think are positive? Like, just briefly, from the
Well,
top of your head.
the visuals were great. I loved them. The naval battles were brilliant compared to like the naval battles that some people were able to do in Napoleonic Wars. They're pretty shocking compared to the Holdfast ones. Holdfast ones brilliant. That was good. The shooting I much more enjoyed. The sounds as well. I know it sounds stupid, but I enjoyed the sounds in Holdfast. But and just it was a more modern version, but they just missed the part that I love about Mount and Blade. So for me, it didn't work in that sense.
Yeah. Are you thinking of delving into Battle Cry of Freedom, or are you yet unsure?
I haven't even looked much into it because from my disappointment from Holdfast, I have not even thought about any other games. I've just been playing my Mount and Blade, and then I've been busy as well in real life, more busy now, and then
Yeah.
I'm not taking too much thought into it. But I don't doubt I'll play it because I've played these games for so long. I'll need to see what it's like.
But you're saying that the Holdfast, how it turned out, was a big disappointment for you in terms of those kind of games.
Well, yeah, I think it was because we even switched to the game for a while as a regiment in 2017 for like 3 or 4 months, and then we ended up
I think
realizing it's just
almost close to a year even.
yeah, and it just didn't go too well in the end.
Yeah.
It wasn't the same. And then the NW community, it died for a little bit, or not died. You had people leaving it, but then majority of them came back, from what I saw. So I think it was a
Yeah.
general consensus of it not going too well.
Let's talk about the learning curve that you have. Let's go a little bit deeper on that. So the
Yeah.
tricks that you've learned to use along the
Mhm.
way, how have you come across these? Like, did you look up tutorial videos, or did other players teach you these, or how did that process kind of go?
Originally, I wonder what when I was young and I wanted to get good, I watched like one video. I think it was Jackie Can's. He's a famous North American player. Some people say he was like the best ever. Either way, he made a like tutorial on all the different things, and I learned them briefly, but I didn't really understand them at all. So aside from that, I had no one really trained me for years. I just played myself, and then it wasn't until 2018. So I got all the basics down at that point in casual regiment, and I decided I want to play competitive. So when I went to starting playing competitive and learning,
Yeah.
I generally learned most of it myself from watching other people and seeing what they do. Um, there was there's one player I played with, which is Baggins. He's one of the best English players there's been, and I played with him for a little bit, and I was already pretty good, but he told me I needed to be more aggressive, so that changed me in how I played. There wasn't actually much taught there, but that changed my mentality in playing the game. And then I just gradually played the game more and more and learned things and saw what other people were doing. And it was mostly
Yeah.
self-taught. And then there's one person I particularly played with a lot, which was Ivan. And another one was Python. I played with loads, and we just played for over the years, hours, and then just dueling each other and learned different things. And that's how I learned. I no one ever really taught me loads. It was just gradually picking it all up from watching everyone else.
Yeah, because I've got like an example of one of the things that you told the fifth members a while back.
Yeah.
And one of the things you mentioned was the stab and sheath weapon tactic, so that you can hit the person
Yeah.
earlier, and the same can be done with a kick.
Yeah, well, most people hate it in the well, most people hate it in the competitive community because it's quite annoying. It doesn't look right at all. I don't know why it
Yeah.
happens. We've looked into it. Like some of like, the people I play with, we like videoed it and slowed it down and trying to work out what's happening. We don't really know what's happening. But it's when you attack, you can then sheath or kick or cancel the animation, and it hits earlier than it would do otherwise, or at least it looks like it. We're pretty sure it does hit earlier. And there's things that you can do with that can completely annoy someone, and it removes like it removes people's like basic understanding of how fast someone can stab you, or whatever,
Yeah.
by just suddenly changing it and doing it weird. It's The sheathing one isn't too useful because obviously when you sheath your musket, you're very vulnerable. You can just get killed. But the kicking one, you can get some really crazy kills with it, and it can really annoy you because you can hit earlier than with kicking, and then you can kick them as well, and then you kill them, and
Yeah.
it's instant death, and people can't react. That one is one of the different things that I'd say was definitely not intended, and quite a lot of the older players hate it, but now with the better players in the community, or even just above average players, can do it now, and it's quite annoying when they start doing it because it was popularized in the last 2 years or so, and it's 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 annoying when everyone else can suddenly do what you can do. But you know, as the
Yeah.
game's gone on, everyone can now do that, or not everyone, but in the competitive, you can do it, and it's a mechanic that can be annoying, but it's also adds a bit of interest at times.
Yeah. Now to go on from there, because obviously the main topic of this video is in regards to the Napoleonic Wars World Cup of 2021.
Yes.
I also wanted to talk about your competitive history within this game, and then obviously that more recent achievement,
Yeah.
the NWWC, which you won with England.
hmm
What was it like playing this year's edition and representing your country?
Um, I'd say this year was really good actually. It's probably the best one yet because I've won it 3 times now. There was one of them was a mini one, but either way, I count them under the same thing, the like World Cup and then the mini World Cup.
Yeah.
Either way, this one was most entertaining because it came down to the last round, which I don't think's ever happened in a World Cup final, and that end round ended up lasting 15 minutes because of the pressure on you, and it was the craziest round I've played.
On this round is all to
Um,
play for.
the year before, the 2021, that wasn't as interesting because the biggest rival in the two biggest contenders in the NWCs is always England and France because they've always seemed to have the best players.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, you guys made it to the final, and then
Yeah.
obviously against France of all opponents, there's no classic
Yeah.
opponent than that for England.
And in this, as it would be in real life, and like the history, and then in the game, it seems to be the way. Because in 2020, the France team was split into two, and that just weakened them because the England team didn't really. Well, I say that the France team had like internal problems with each other, and England sort of made an A team and a B team, but France sort of made two 1.5 teams, if that makes sense. And therefore, the competition wasn't anywhere near as exciting. The final was very smooth sailing for us, so that was not too intense. 2019 one was good, but that was nowhere near as close. So the 2021 one was the best to play in for sure, given how good both teams were, probably the best teams that both teams had, and given it going to 14-14 when it's first
Yeah.
15, that was crazy.
So let's rewind back to that day. Just like the first moments of that match, like what was running through your mind when you and your fellow teammates were on that pitch readying up with the final about to start? Were you like nervous, or did you like manage to keep cool and focus?
No,
Or
this time I wasn't actually too nervous. I was pretty confident that I was pretty confident we could win. Oh, I knew they were the best team that we'd first by miles, that France team. But I was pretty confident we could win. I was confident how I was playing because I played quite a bit for that. And it started pretty well. Halfway through, it started going downhill, and they ended up getting a lead again and getting to, I think it was 14-11 or whatever. But at the start, I was definitely confident, and nerves weren't too much. After years of playing, my nerves have
yeah,
certainly decreased. Because the first time I played WWC, which was 2018, I was pretty new to the competitive, and I was just shaking and everything. That was awful. It was an awful one.
I can imagine.
Yeah, now I've mostly well, not obviously you can't remove nerves in that like final round, for example, but at the start, the general whole match, I'm not nervous anymore.
And in your opinion, what is like the most challenging aspect when you're fighting these kind of competitive group fights?
The challenge aspect is those ones specifically the best when you're versing the best players, because general competitive group fights with like teams whatever, you can do much more of what you want because there's weaker players or whatever. But when you get to the finals, everyone there is usually good, and specifically in that match, that was probably the best match I'd played skill wise. And you just got to fight the urge to push the limits because when you like being aggressive as a player or whatever, you like to go for things that are sort of risky or a flashy player or whatever to try and do something. But in that, it's really you really can't when they're the best players. There is only two attack directions.
Yeah.
You can't just run in and kill them. It really doesn't work like that. It's more you're waiting, you're trying to play perfectly so then you don't make a mistake, and it's the first team to make a mistake that then loses. It's less about showing off your skill in that moment. It's just showing your patience and consistency, I guess.
Yeah. So you highlighted it yourself a few times now. So to come back to that final, like the score was 14-14 eventually. Like they came back from having a few rounds lost. And a win for you guys means the title. Losing the round means second place.
Yes.
And I must say, like for those who haven't seen Chattopia's video, like he commentated that particular match.
Yeah.
Spoilers, even though it's already been months ago. But that was, as you mentioned as well, like probably the longest round, the most intensive round of group fighting I've ever watched. And that round, despite its like long duration, just honestly kept me on the edge of my seat. Like no dull moment there. I was really anxious at times for you guys. Like the constant back and forth, like keeping the line formation going, like the picks here and there. You eventually got 2 kills in that round, and you effectively, I rewatched it, you effectively got the kill that won you the World Cup shortly before you got team kills.
Yeah, I nabbed the last few kills. I made sure I made sure of that. I didn't make the first kill, which is usually deemed the most important kill in the round, the first kill, because you're just the first kill is obviously the hardest because you've broken the equilibrium, if you will, of the round, and then it's the advantage for you to then play with. But I got the final kill, so I was quite happy that I got the final one, so we won. But at that point, it was already won. When you've got 7 people on 3 or whatever. But it was really good. The final round, I remember it. I was just playing solid. My job was with my flank partner Hiroshi to just push around the side, and we just had to carry on pushing or whatever. And it was a really intense round. I was happy we ended up winning, especially in the first kill. I forgot who it was that got the first kill. I think it might have been Python, but either way, it was a good round.
Yeah, that was one of the things I was gonna ask. Like the feeling in that voice channel that you guys must have been.
Oh yeah, there is a voice like recording of all of it from Shady, which one of the English players. He recorded the whole thing in the final round. It's very intense. People shouting at times, do this, do that, and whatever. But by that point, we'd sort of agreed what we were doing, and we had a tactic that seemed to
you had a plan
work.
set up, and you went for that.
Because you can plan as much as you want beforehand, but you don't know what's going to happen. So throughout the match, you then decide what's working, whatever. And we decided one thing that specifically wasn't working, and we then didn't do that and carried on repeating what we were doing, and eventually ended up working. And then when we actually win, the excitement was quite something. And one player that's very passionate about it, which is volleyball on the England team, he loved it, absolutely loved it.
I assume those tactics that you're talking about, like, do you guys like come up with them on the spot, or are these like pre-trained tactics, like in case you have a plan A that goes wrong, you got a plan B to back up on? Or...
It varies. There's not too many tactics you can have, just generally group fighting. I say that there is, but you've got obviously pushing one way, whatever, rotating around, and one tactic I enjoy, you can't really utilize it too much, is when you talk to your teammate next to you, and you've got obviously opposite stabs, and you just suddenly say you notice an opportunity when someone keeps stepping out too far or whatever, and you can if you count down from 3, 2, 1, then you both stab at the same time. It's almost impossible for them to block or whatever. That's probably the most satisfying actual tactic to use.
Yeah.
But the ones that we plan, I suppose, was the pinning people into the corner, because if you gradually sort of corral them into a corner or herd them into the corner, and the other side stops letting them out, and then you've got them pinned into a corner. But eventually we realised, we had planned that we'd do that, but eventually we realised it wasn't working too well, so eventually we just carried on letting them out of the corner. Either way, tactics, there are tactics for sure, and there's instant tactics you suddenly decide, but all round you can't plan it too much, I don't think, because then it's in your mind, you're too focused on what you want to do or what the tactic is, and then you just forget a basic thing like blocking. So you've sort of got to go with the flow to an extent.
Yeah, definitely, that makes sense. So I'm assuming the game is still gonna be played for a little while longer, especially considering the market and the attempt of the other games trying to replicate that system, but not always getting that right. So I assume that's why Mount and Blade Napoleonic Wars in 2022 is still gonna be played. Until a successful successor comes along. Either that be in an independent game or a mod for Bannerlord. You never know. But in any case, do you have any tips for new players or players that want to improve in, say, group fights or melee combat in general when it comes to Napoleonic Wars?
The biggest way to improve is literally to just play and play as much as you can on like the group fights or whatever, but then that's dying now anyway. So there's now Warband matchmaking, which was created a couple of years back for Mount and Blade or Napoleonic Wars as well. So you can go into group fighting matches, sort of similar to you'd play in a tournament or whatever, and you can practice it that way. Which is a website that you sign up to, and you can play through that. So that's probably one of the better ways to improve. And it's also just having someone that you know that's good that you can play with, and they can teach you. Because now getting to the top by yourself is almost impossible. You've got to have someone that shows you things. And you've also got, but I mean, you can get good. I don't think you can become a top player anymore, but with the time left. But I think you can certainly become pretty good, and be, especially for casual side of it, you can become excellent if you have someone teaching you.
Alrighty. I think the only question I have yet to ask is, what's next for Domi? What is next for you? Like, anything in particular that you're looking forward to play, or are you steadily retiring from NW? Or I know this topic is already discussed a little bit before we had this conversation, but like, if you wanna.
Well, no. For me now, I'm playing less and less because I've got more and more schoolwork to do and studies to do. I just don't have the time, especially when I want to do other things as well. I want to go out and do things. So Mount and Blade's not as dominant in my life anymore. But I always find I still enjoy it, whatever, and I still want to play. So I don't think I'll stop. But I just won't play as much, and that is quite an annoying thing to do when you want to play, but you can't really because you got other things to do. And it's the most infuriating when you're not as good as you were because you're not playing, and that's one of the worst things because I could do this, could do that. I've messed that up, and I wouldn't have done that before. But for me, I think I'll still play, but I don't think I'll be as active as I have been in years past.
Alrighty. Domi, I want to thank you for this very informative and interesting conversation. It's been lots of fun.
Yes, for sure. I enjoyed it.